Well, hello everyone. Pete and Yapo from the Voluntary Option. Tonight I have the pleasure of having Adam Kokesh co-host with me as we sit back and have a cocktail as we aren't present in Orlando as we had hoped to be. But, circumstances beyond our control. I don't feel like being stuck in a state for 14 days if I don't need to be. When I live in freedom now, why would I want to live anywhere else for 14 minutes, let alone 14 days? Um, Tonight's show is a kind of a special show because I have Adam on and because I believe that it's time that we break the cycle, as Josh Smith would say, and move forward with true American value, with true freedom, and with a true way to live without the government being our parent, our daddy, or whatever. Our 90% of the time we're that red-headed stepchild and beaten down and used and abused. And it's time. Listen, my thoughts more and more grow and evolve when I think about life in general and what I was promised when I was born, which was nothing. Uh, and the fact
a few
that,
100,000 in debt, I think.
Yeah, well, right, but that was given to me.
Well, when you were born, it was a lot less.
Yeah,
but if you're born today,
yeah. Well, we'll just think
when we were born, even when I was born,
well, we just added 9 trillion to our children's debt, right? And it's getting out of hand. And personally, yeah, I run the banner, wave the flag, and jump up and down for the LP right now because the LP is about as close to my personal views as there is out there. But let's face it, if we all sit back and we all hold up this document that we want to run around and claim that is the greatest thing since sliced bread, that had 10 amendments in which 0 of them have any effect, except for the 5th, because you can claim that and it still kind of works. But other than that,
Can you imagine someone getting charged with illegal gun possession saying, I plead the second. I plead the second. Tough shit. You're going to jail.
Right. You can plead it from the cell where we're going to lock you up at. But again, if we want to use that document and sit back and say, this document explained how we can live in true freedom and what we should do if we weren't. We shouldn't be so much concentrating on being another party within a system which is completely broken. Let's face it. We were promised, and words got twisted. And this is where I think we all have to take the blame. We all sit back and blame the government every day for everything that goes wrong with us. And yes, they impose things upon us in which makes it very difficult for us to live. But if we look at that original document and we sit back and where it says, if you're being ruled by a tyrannical government, it's your duty to overthrow it.
That's the other document, Peter.
But no.
That's the Declaration.
Yes, I know, but both of those documents are the 2 documents in which we hold hands with and run around and say, this is how we're supposed to live, and this is what we're supposed to do if we can't live this way.
Well, they're actually very deliberately confused historically. Mm-hmm. Where this was my debate earlier today on it was a great podcast with CJ Cox. Mm-hmm. And he was taking the position that the Constitution was good for freedom. Mm-hmm. And it's just historically inaccurate. I mean, the current Constitution is actually illegal under the previous Constitution, which was the Articles of Confederation.
Right.
And what we have with this is, I asked him, he was making the case that it was the same people who wrote the Constitution as signed the Declaration. Do you know how many it was? It was only 6.
Yeah, it was 6
out of the 39 who signed the Constitution. Only 6 also signed the Declaration, and the Constitution was a coup. It was an illegal power grab. But yeah, Peter, you're so right. And if I may take just a slightly more positive view of the LP than where I think you're going with this.
Again, good.
I mean, and this is kind of a matter of science and deduction and logic and reasoning, but it's a little bit of matter of faith and humanity mixed in there as well that leads me to the belief that a voluntary society is inevitable. Assuming we don't I'll die from corona. I'm sorry, I don't want to screw up your stream. The virus which shall not be named, that virus that we know is less deadly than trying to spend a counterfeit $20 bill in Minneapolis, but or we blow each other up with nukes or aliens, but that it is inevitable in the course of human progress and getting better over time that we learn to get along peacefully without coercive institutions like government or acts of violence in order to get by, and that's the progress to a voluntary society. The Libertarian Party, as representing the message of ethics and politics and the non-aggression principle, is our best vehicle within politics, within that conversation, to have our message heard. Undoubtedly, in this political climate, it represents that at very, very least. Now, does that mean it's our best way to get the message out in the whole world? Not necessarily. I think it is right now, generally speaking. Running candidates, the easiest way to get out into the mainstream dialogue. And whether or not, and this is where Peter might say, no, it's not going to be the way. It could be the way, but not necessarily. But the way definitely includes a raising of consciousness that transcends
I
the
agree.
political.
I agree. But there is such a vast, and when you think of the LP, it's not as defined and within the borders as, say, the R's and the D's are. You know what I mean? There's a lot of room everywhere about it. Just think of localization. Let's talk localization, which is a platform Adam, obviously, is very familiar with. We have a book written on it and everything else. But localization isn't, as though, although it is LP, it is considered so extreme within so many times that it's considered its own party in itself. That's just my thought process on it.
It could be. I've been challenged several times, like, hey, Adam, why not? If the localization message is more inclusive than libertarianism, why not, create a new party about localization? And it sounds extreme to say get rid of the federal government, but it's really the most moderate platform in the sense that it's whatever communities come together voluntarily to form, they can have whatever they want.
Just think of the mysterious illness that's to be left unnamed. Kind of like most of Hillary's victims. We can't. I guess those two things
I
went
am
hand in
not
hand.
now,
I guess
nor have I
mention
ever
either
been
one.
suicidal.
I guess you can't mention either one of them. But but at the end of the day, I have seen firsthand how a localized living arrangement is more beneficial, still has guidelines, rules, and things. Listen, we live in freedom here at the Garden of Freedom.
It's funny. Hold on, if I may, you just gave me a really interesting idea about this. It's like, when you say we live out here, we're down 3 miles of private dirt road. When normal people say when seconds count, the police are just minutes away. Out here, what is it? The police are just an hour away. The local town, there's no police. It's not even an incorporated city. Ashford, we have county sheriffs that do patrol out here occasionally. But what would the response time be to a place that you can't find from GPS?
Nope.
You can't find with an address. Nope. You might not even be able to get to with GPS coordinates and 4-wheel drive without getting lost down several dead ends.
That's right.
The police are not a factor here in daily relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about as peaceful as it could be.
At the end of the day, we really don't need them. I mean, what do we really need them for other than, we had some crazy running around in the woods the other day.
It was the police that were scaring everybody.
Yeah, I know we were watching them more than we were watching what was going on. But to live like that, especially in the world that we've created now, this world of fear, this world of everything, like you said, Ashwork isn't incorporated.
I can't believe I never thought of that example before. There's so many debates, even earlier today. The guy's like, public safety, and it's like,
what are we afraid of?
He said we need government to stop rapes. Do women afraid of being raped carry cops around in their pockets or guns? Which one is going to be more? And I'm not, here, maybe pepper spray, taser, whatever it is you're comfortable with or is more effective for you, separate conversation. But, we need government to do this thing that it pretends to do that it obviously never does at all anyway.
Helen said today when we were driving to Chino Valley, as we're going down 89, and there's nothing really even on that road. It's pretty much an empty road. It's not like loaded with commerce and all
That's
this other
beautiful
stuff.
about it.
And it's right. It's a beautiful ride. But she said, I feel safer back there than I do even out here just on this road. I feel safer out in the woods with nothing around me, than out here amongst all of this protection and whatever.
Yeah, and these guys go into town like every other day, and it drives me nuts. I'm like, well, shit. Then I never have to go into town. Like, can you grab this for me? Grab this for me? And it's like I don't have to. Like, but you see, after a while, it's just such a cool experience. It really reframes it for you. And I've owned this property for a little over 4 years now, and I've lived on it most of that time. But I've also spent large chunks, even recently, on the road touring on this bus for the campaign,
right.
And it's a different feeling. You come back here and it's a different kind of peace.
Yes.
So just once you get it, I don't know if there's anything that you can describe to compare it to, but when you see in the movies when they blast off into outer space, it's like, whoa, it's super intense. And then you get out there and it's like, whoa. And you're scared at first, but then it's that deafening silence, that overwhelming peace of outer space compared, and you're moving, you might be moving faster even, but it's without that friction of the atmosphere. Like a fish doesn't notice the water it swims in. The statist citizen who lives in under the blanket of government authority is a regular physical presence in their lives. You don't notice it until you come out here and take the time to go, oh, this is what fresh air and freedom tastes like.
It's completely different.
You don't want to leave. I don't want to leave. Like, you see, when I'm here, like, I don't mind going off and touring when I'm called to, but when I'm here,
by choice, he never leaves.
Oh, yeah.
He never. I mean, he honestly, like, oh, you're going to town, good. Or you're gonna go here, get my mail. And that's just the way it is. And for good reason. Again, good reason. You get out there and, like, Adam will say to us, well, what's it like out there? How are people reacting to this?
Well, when they went all the way into Chino Valley to do their grocery and big box shopping, hardware.
Yeah. We went to, went to some stores, like Home Depot, like everybody takes for granted back in the whatever life. But it's different.
It's great to have it at a distance.
Like opening doors this and stay back. And, come on, folks. We aren't going to die, guys. We're not. We're just not gonna.
It really feels like a different world out here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like every time you get from the dirt to the pavement, it's like re-entering the Matrix.
My favorite signs are the ones that, like, at eateries that say, you must wear a mask. Well, how am I shoving food in my face? And am I okay for that? I guess when you have your mask off and you're forcing food in your mouth, you can't COVID yourself. I mean, you just can't, It's so silly the way people think of it. Because if you're going to take your mask off for a half a second to shove food in your mouth, why wear it the whole time when you didn't go in there? It doesn't make any sense. It just makes no sense to me. I saw an article somebody put up today in one of my feeds. You got to know it's BS. They said, now COVID can be spread 60 feet, even with a mask on. How are you spreading something 60 feet from you without, we're to the point now where I wish these podcasts, and I wish the feeds and YouTube things that go out that people had the same pull that CNN, the MSNBC, because all they have to do is say, do this. And as good people, we just do it. But they said on the news, so what? They said it on the news. How many things they've said on the news? They said that Kennedy was assassinated by somebody that didn't assassinate him. Let's be real about that. They've said so many things on the news for decades and decades and decades, and we just buy into it and believe it because they said it on the news. Now, we follow agencies that don't even have doctors running them, that don't even have professionals that know anything about health that are giving us health advice. And we just sit back and eat it up like it's candy.
Well, speaking of scary headlines, Peter, I read one the other day that said you can catch the virus, which shall not be named, twice, even after you get it and fully recover, even if you've already died. You can catch it again and it'll kill you again. It's such a dangerous virus. All right.
Well, less than 0.5% of people dying from it. And listen, I hate Cheeto Jesus and everything he stands for and all he's done to us.
He's not worthy of your hate, Peter.
But he's made the state. Somebody was calling him a liar the other day for saying 99% of the people that are affected by this are going. I go, you know what? Yeah, he did lie. It's only a 0.5%.
Yeah,
I say it's 99.5. It ain't 99. But people are, look at this lying guy. He's trying to kill us all.
Well, I want to see more data on this, and I think we're going to as the campaign develops with polling. But the overall narrative of COVID from the Trump administration might be, I don't want to say the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's like the punch that finally broke through the door of the just worship of Donald Trump by his base, where he came out saying the right thing generally. Hey guys, it's not a big deal. That was his first take. Like he compared it to the flu, said, we can handle this. It's not a big deal. And then turned around and declared a state of emergency.
I know.
And like one way or another, there's no way in November that you can tell America's story of 2020 and go, and that's why we need to re-elect Trump.
I know. Or that's why we got to elect a kid sniffer. I mean, either way, it don't work.
Right. And I'm not saying this as a Biden supporter. And I mean, if I had to make a prediction, and it's not what I'm happy or proud to make, I think Biden's going to win. I mean, and it's not like guaranteed.
Did you think Hillary was going to
win? I think so, yeah, but I knew it was going to be really close, and there was the possibility,
I think most people thought she was going to.
But not like by a wide margin. I mean, and not enough to really call it. I didn't call it, and I wasn't like, yeah, Hillary's got this in the bag. I thought it was it was going to be close. Like, I wasn't off. But like on this one, and Hillary still won the popular vote. So if you called it for Hillary and forgot to think in your analysis, wait, but he might win on the electoral technicality. I'm not saying that's cheating or anything. But that you still were in a sense right in your prediction, and
right.
And I'm not saying that in this sense I am saying that without some major shift, I mean without Biden screwing something up, it's his to lose right now, and that's not just my general assessment of personal analysis and where things are going. Looking at polls, the bigger polls and where polls are going. The most conservative with him at 7 points. Now, the super class, remember, always wants to engineer the race to be close between the Democrat and Republican, because then you better not vote for the Libertarian, because that would be throwing your vote away. And your vote could make the difference. And, even Walter Block, our friend who's as hardcore Libertarian as it gets, who said, hey, we need to support Trump over Clinton, said we need to vote for the Libertarian in the states where it doesn't matter and send the message and still do that. But, we could have a Libertarian moment. We could have Joe breaking out.
But because listen,
without that,
what is the number? What are the numbers right now? Because you probably know better than me. What are the numbers in favor of an R, a D, or an NOT? The NOTA. No, not NCAM. Who are they going to vote for? Are they going to go R, D, or none of the above?
The number I remember is that Biden is up 7 to 12 points right now, which is really hugely significant in the way that presidential races are decided, generally along pretty taut duopoly lines. But what are the numbers for who's voting for Jo Jorgensen? She's got to do something to get her name ID up right now, because it's just the dissatisfaction is not enough to break people out of the cycle of the duopoly. And we really have to help her with that. And even if she doesn't have a chance of breaking out, like I said, the Libertarian Party being the best chance or mechanism and vehicle for getting our message out right now as the nominee, she has the best chance of reaching the most people. And I still think, a goal of somewhere in the realm of 5 to 10%, even for Joe, on a sort of boilerplate, Libertarian platform, Nothing wrong with that. That's the strategy we went with, as opposed to what I was proposing with localization, right? But even if there's no special libertarian traction, I think having a breakout year, cracking 5% is still what we should be expecting. In the bigger picture, though, and this is being, I hope, a realist and not a pessimist. We're not going to break 10% as a Libertarian Party in 2020 without a significant breakthrough moment, without either getting in the debates or Joe doing some kind of civil disobedience and making national headlines, or just starting to poll legitimately at over 10%. It's got to take something like that. And I'm praying for that. I'm at her service when it comes to the debates or anything else. As we talked about, organizing demand that we shut down the debates unless they let the
and we need to do that. Listen,
if that happens in person,
we need to do that, and honestly,
that might cause them to do the debates virtually.
Well, in thought with all that, just think tonight's a pretty New York heavy night with as far as guests we got on. We got Tony D'Azorio that is running for LNC chair. I got a great friend of mine, Daniel Donnelly, on, who's just elected to the New York LNP. A great guy, Tarja Duchess. This guy goes county to county to county setting up things. I mean, Daniel's just a superstar in my eyes. And the pathetic thing about that is Larry Sharpe worked so hard to get us on the ballot in New York, and it looks like we're going to lose our ballot access there. Now, what in God's name did we put all this time and energy and fight and into to just even gain recognition enough to be placed upon the ballots, to have the R's and the D's with their stupid freaking power be able to just eliminate that? So I'm glad I'm going to have them guys on tonight. As Chris Cole will be joining us in from Orlando. Tonight we're trying to talk a bit about Orlando and about the convention and how we can put ourselves over that hump, what we can do to push Joe over the hump, what we can do to get the leadership in which we need within the LP that we are lacking at this point in time. It is time that we break the cycle, and it really truly is. And I hate to steal Josh, and my show has supported Josh. Tony's a good friend and a New Yorker, and believe me, I love Tony for everything he does, and I'm going to support him during this podcast to let him get his message out, and hopefully he can get something done.
I want to say I've wholeheartedly endorsed Joshua Smith for chair. I intend to vote for him remotely as a California delegate. But I'm going to be the contrarian here and say I don't like the slogan. I mean, I believe in what he stands for. Right. And I actually support the message and what he means, which is break the cycle. But like Buckminster Fuller, don't defeat the old system by fighting to build it. I don't want to break the cycle. I want to build a new cycle.
Right.
But no, what Josh is referring to there, and I think what Peter is getting at, what I hope we get at this with this conversation tonight, is that there's a more effective way for the Libertarian Party.
Yes.
And whether it's by sabotage and subterfuge or simply being distracted by shiny things, ballot access, as opposed to keeping the eye on the prize of a free society, we may have become less effective in a lot of ways. There you go, a fresh start.
That's right.
That's what website is that? That's Tony's website. Look at that. All right,
Tony.
that is the perfect positive version of break the cycle. I'll give you that for sloganeering, Tony. And I do want to say one other thing. While I've endorsed Joshua Smith, a lot of people who run for LNC chair, like my friend Jacob Lamont from Washington State, who I also support, is running in part for, and this is like he's if he was here, he'd be like, Adam, don't say that. A lot of it's one of those things about, it's like, this is libertarian politics, boys. Let's stop being silly about stuff like this. He's in part running for the consolation prize of being on the LNC, and that's what Joshua Smith essentially did in 2016.
Right.
And no, 2018. Excuse me. 2018 in New Orleans when he ran for LNC and got elected with my vote in both races, and my endorsement in both to LNC at large. And he's been now the top recruiter on the LNC. I think that stands hugely to his credit. And I want more people running for the LNC and running for chair in the officer positions and stepping up to that leadership level of the LNC, because that is key.
And everybody on the show tonight has done a huge job in recruitment. I mean, Daniel in general, I can speak on his behalf. I know he's done a tremendous job in New York. And that's what I believe will erase or try to take a little bit of that scrape off that third party title you get. If we grow and we become bigger, which we can, listen, the more anybody here is going to agree, because let's face it, it's a libertarian podcast. Most people have libertarian principles. They truly do. If you sit back and think about life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, those things that you're entitled to, though, lack of violence. We don't need to be in wars overseas, folks. Why are we over there? There's no need for us to be over there. What are we protecting over there that is here?
Stop saying we. Who said that?
Why is the United States government placing citizens of this country across the lake to defend oil and poppy? And listen, we only get 5% of our oil from overseas anyway. We got it all right here. We've got reserves from the 70s still. We're trying to get away from fossil fuel. So there's no need to be in that war any longer. Poppy, yeah, we got a bunch of people addicted to opiates. So what? I can grow it in my backyard if they lift the ban. They were able to do it with persistent organic pollutants and poison my food.
Legalize medical opium.
That's right. Legalize all
and then
drugs.
Recreational.
Let people
or all at once, whatever's easier for you.
Exactly. But that's another funny thing I always hear is people say, well, libertarians, they want to legalize drugs. People will all run around high all day. People are running around high all day anyway, people. They just won't go to jail for it and cost you money. We've got people sitting in jail. God bless Craig Cecil. I got to plug him. Craig Cecil was a person that was in jail for life without the possibility of parole for being a mechanic on a truck that transported cannabis. Everybody else rolled. He wouldn't take a plea because the man never even smoked pot in his life. He's doing life without the possibility of parole. He's home today on his daughter's Lauren's couch because of the mysterious virus that people are worried about. He's home on her couch, but he can go back tomorrow. When they say the pandemic's over, they can reinstate they didn't change his sentence. They're making him serve it on his daughter's couch.
Yeah, just to underscore this is a nice quirk of the coronaphobia season. Yes. The government has released people who were sentenced to life. This is not an isolated. It's not like there are not a lot of these. This is an unusual, but it's not a free case. There are at least thousands that we know of.
Yep.
Now, life sentences, how many we don't know, but people serving serious terms, thousands at least, probably tens of thousands. I think we can say comfortably from the handful of stories that we've all read. Have you seen? You haven't. There are no comprehensive numbers on this.
No,
right?
but I know
it's at least
of a lot.
Tens of thousands total of people who have been let out of jail, and a significant number who were sentenced to life. And we can't say the F word on this because we're on YouTube, right? Or we're on Facebook. I have no idea. We're gonna get anyway. Yeah. So I'll say mind frick.
Yeah.
And like I say on my show every day, if you want to tune in, Adam versus the Man, like Lenny Bruce said, to quote him indirectly, if you can't say frick, you can't say frick the government. But it must be quite a mind frick to be like, oh, I'm not spending the rest of my life in jail. I'm on house arrest now, living with a family member.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Whoa! Leave the country, people! Like, get out!
Go somewhere.
They will not pursue the conspiracy to transport marijuana across lines charge for your, what's his name, the mechanic? Craig Cecil. Jeez.
He's one of many. And the funny thing about Craig's story was that he met all the guidelines that the Attorney General put up. The Attorney General had signed his papers to be released. The warden at Terre Haute said, "Nope, you ain't going nowhere," and he shut it down. And the only thing, by the grace of God and good people like myself and thousands of others, that took the time to write senators, write the governor, and say, "Hey, listen, this man was cleared to leave this prison. It's a vendetta against him. Da 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 da. Sure enough, the warden came back and said, "Guess what, Mr. Cecil, you're going to be going." Now, Craig, knowing the system, never mentioned it, never said nothing until he was walking out the door of the gates of the prison. And I said to him when I interviewed him, I said, "Hey, Craig, what was the first thing you said you wanted to do? The minute you got out, like, what is it?" He goes, "No shit. I looked at my daughter, Lauren, and said, start the car. Let's get the hell out of here because I don't believe this shit." And honestly, he was still scared up until the second he got in that car. They were going to change his mind and lock him right back up in there and have him for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
But that
how dumb.
But
how dumb is
crimes,
there's a sort of mental torture with this that I did 4 months in my longest stretch in jail. Really insignificant compared to people doing a life sentence or even 10 years. It feels a lot different to get 10 years versus 4 months.
Yeah.
But during that time, the mental torture was the uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a system that the market creates smoothness and certainty in society by responding to the relatively smooth but ever-changing human needs for the delivery of certain goods and services, including justice services, mental health services, taking care of truly dangerous people services. And what government does is introduce chaos and arbitrariness into societies dealing with those issues, and just the uncertainty. When they say that Black Americans experience these statistically worse experiences in the criminal system, or poor people, or whatever it is, or whatever the victim class, however you want to divide it up demographically, the implications for that. I mean, as a business owner, if Congress is debating whether or not your business is going to be legal next week, you're not going to get investors.
Right.
If you don't know if you're going to be in jail or not next week, you can't get a job.
That's right.
If you're going to court next week, you got to tell your boss, "I'm going to court because I got in trouble," and you're the liability.
That's right.
It's the destructive effects of the system we're living under now will not be fully realized in scope until we're past it.
And I can't probably think of a more destructive system that we've got going on in this country, maybe excluding California, than New York. The governor of New York is horrible. With that, Jim, can you please bring in Tony and Daniel, please, and let them join the conversation. We're a couple of guys from New York that are actually LP driven. We've got the chair of the New York LP, Tony, and we have Daniel Donnelly, who's just elected to the New York LP as well. I want to welcome you both, guys. Thank you for taking the time out this late evening. I know it's early for me and Adam here. We still got the sun, but I know it's after 8 o'clock there on your guys on the East Coast. So we appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight.
Yeah, I was enjoying watching that buddy movie that the two of you guys have going on for the last half
hour. Nice bromance.
Yeah, listen, we're just missing pizza and pineapple. We said that before we started.
All right, time for another rum and coke.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
adult alcohol.
Eggnog and coke. Yes, eggnog and coke. We're not consuming any controlled substances on the censorship-free internet here. And this is a water pipe for tobacco purposes, just to be clear.
Well, Tony, hey, listen, Tony, first I'm going to bring you in.
Lemonade.
Tony's running for LMC chair. He is a New Yorker. He's unfortunately unable to be in Orlando today. We tried to. I asked him earlier because I kind of want to see if he could give us the lay of the land of being, what it was like there. But I wanted to give him a chance to come on tonight, speak a little bit about what's going on in New York, how things are there, and to truly spread a bit about his platform. We all listen, guys. As delegates, we all have a vote to cast. It's not being cast until the weekend. Let's give these guys. I'm trying to give these guys as much opportunity to get out and see what value they're going to bring to us to help us move forward. And Tony, again, we welcome you.
Oh, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. So, Tony, we saw your thing come up that says a fresh start.
A fresh start. That's right.
Okay. Explain a little bit about what your stance is and how you think you're going to help the LP move forward and take down this duopoly.
So my slogan, a fresh start, kind of came out of the no incumbents for LNC movement that has been kind of growing over the last couple of months. There's a significant number of people who don't want to see anybody on the current LNC on the next board. So as they started seeing that and seeing the and people started asking me to run because they thought I would be a good choice, and I don't disagree with them, which is why I'm running. Um, I decided that a fresh start might be a good message to send. I would bring a fresh start to the LNC right at the top. I would bring a different focus than the current administration brings, or any of my opponents, who are all
Hey,
great
listen,
people.
I gotta say, I gotta say, when we were named emissaries for the party and we came out on the road this September, one thing I gotta say about Tony is he's been very forthright and opened up his Rolodex to every state me and my wife have gone through. With the help of Daniel as well, introducing me to Tony. And Tony, I want to thank you for all the people. I mean, every time I had, hey, do you know anybody in this state? Hey, do I know anybody in this state? You were always there and there for us, and that we appreciate, man. So no, when you do get Tony, he will help you across the board, no matter where it is in this country you are or where you were.
Well, yeah, no, and you guys, you and Helen were great ambassadors for the party and for freedom in general. So I'm happy to help whenever you need. Um, and I look forward to seeing where you guys go next. So
What's your thoughts on the LP right now in New York? How big is our battle in staying on the ballot? I mean, is this a true fight, or
it's a true fight.
is this another scare tactic?
No, it's real. For those who aren't aware, last fall, Governor Cuomo tried to railroad through a campaign finance change, which changed the thresholds and timing of ballot access. It basically turned the presidential race into a ballot access race, and they tripled the thresholds. So
Yes,
we used to need 50,000 votes to gain ballot access only in the gubernatorial race. Now we need about 140,000, give or take. And then the petitioning
yeah,
thresholds and time were also kind of dilated. So we are so that happened. Another third party sued the state and won, so that got pulled off. But then Governor Cuomo, with his emergency powers, kind of railroaded through a state budget that included this exact same provisions. So yeah, it's real. We're currently suing the state in federal court on several grounds. Basically, that they promised us ballot access, and they changed all these thresholds without giving us more time to meet them. It's we have quite a fight on our hands, but I'm staying optimistic, and this is one way that we can prevent even needing this lawsuit is by getting the vote out for Joe. If we get as many votes for Joe as we got for Gary 4 years ago, we'll be okay.
yeah.
But
Yeah. Listen, what can people do to help you? What can people do in New York to make sure that this doesn't happen?
Well, the first thing you can do is register Libertarian, vote for Libertarian candidates. We have a lot of them, not just Joe.
Right.
Help us campaign. That's the first thing you can do. The second thing you can do is make sure Albany knows exactly how you feel about this. Make sure Albany knows that you want that third option on the ballot. And the fourth option, the fifth option. It's not just the Libertarian Party that's being targeted. We're just the biggest ones.
Right. Hey, listen, and across the screen, everybody, it says it going across the screen all the time. Support it. Be a part of it. Join the LP. It's lp.org. It's not hard to find. Just look down below where we're talking. It's scrolling across the bottom the whole time. If you are sick of being ruled, if you are sick of being run, it's time that you elect people with like minds. So that's what that's just my suggestion. I mean, I think the happiest day of my life in politics was when I got my notification in the mail that I was a registered member of the LP. Because I have to be honest, for God, I don't even know, as much as I've hated government and hated the system and tried to stay out of politics in my 56 years of being walking around this planet, I was a Republican because my dad and mom were. You know, that's how I registered when I was 18, when I signed my name on my draft paper, and I had to, all those things you have to do when you're 18 that this government makes you do, and become in contract with them any further, you know, which I wish I would have known at the time when I was 18 years old, that I would have made better choices. But that's what I did. I just picked the Republican Party because my parents were. You know, I can remember my father screaming in the 70s, "Fuck it, Nixon only did what everybody else did. He just got caught." You know what I mean? And I sit back
Truth to that.
dude, he's probably right. Everybody else probably does do this shit. And he probably got
And
caught.
a lot worse.
But hell yeah, he bastardized the most healthy plant on the planet. I mean, like, and throws us in jail for the rest of our lives. But honestly, I mean, I think that's what a lot of people still do. I think young people look and they go, well, you know, my dad's always had a blue sign, or my mom's always had a red sign in their front yard. I think I need a blue or red sign in my front yard. Well, I like blue, but it had gold in it. So, and who don't like gold? So shit, you know. And then what happened was, I think what happened with a lot of people, especially in New York, I got to meet, shake hands with, and work with a gentleman named Larry Sharpe. And Larry is, not for nothing, probably one of the greatest voices in the party, in my opinion. I wish he would have teamed with Adam. How many times I said, a million times, God, if I don't give a shit which way you go with it. You VP, Adam VP, and Larry VP, I don't care. Just the two of you do this. You know, if the two of you did this and people took 10 minutes to listen to you.
I hate to play the veteran card, but when identity politics is relevant for other people, and it's not just identity politics in the sense that it's a certain statist credibility of politics, having two Marine Corps vets, there's a certain power in that too.
And absolutely. Hey, look,
We're challenging militarism, really.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I thought it would be cool. And not only that, the localization platform, and I know Adam, and Adam lives how he speaks and speaks how he lives. And I know Larry does. I said I spent 2 years with him pretty much on the road trying to get him elected.
Wait, he lives in New York City.
Yeah. Well, he never was in it.
Wait a second. Is it possible to be a libertarian and live in New York City? Are you sure? Are you sure? I'm
He lives in Queens.
You live in New York City and you become a libertarian, you leave.
Don't let him leave. Don't put any ideas in his damn head. He lives in Queens.
Well, he means leave the city.
No,
he could have moved to the country. He didn't leave New York.
Yes, we'll take him upstate. We'll take him upstate anytime.
Yeah, you can. There's some places you can hide in a cabin upstate and live like we do down 3 miles of private dirt road. But then you got the winter to deal with.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what.
I'm with that. Hey, listen, I don't want to take away from or keep off screen a good friend, a fellow libertarian, probably one of the hardest working guys I've really truly ever met in this party, and that's Daniel Donnelly. And Daniel, I want to welcome you to the voluntary option. Again, this isn't your first go around on our show. We love you and we love having you on here, and welcome. How's things going in Armenia and Dutchess County?
Armenia, yes, things are all right. A bit hot today, so that's why I have my water here. But yes, things are going well. I just was elected to the state committee, so I have big shoes to fill. We have a lot of county development to do and outreach, and we border 5 different states and a foreign country, so we have a lot of outreach and collaboration to do with other state affiliates and such. So big things are in the future for us.
I gotta say, if everybody doesn't know Daniel, Daniel was one of co-MCs of the presidential in Orleans in New York. And I'll tell you, he did a fantastic job. We were so proud of him that he got asked to begin with. But I've never seen a guy like so passionate about keeping our community strong, and especially in the Hudson Valley. Like the Hudson Valley of New York is probably one of the most pretty places you'll ever visit in your life. It truly, honestly is. And the people there are good, but the people have been they're just outside that 60 to 75 mile bubble of New York City. So you have a lot of those city people that want to work in the city and that are, have those, fireman, police jobs, that pay very well, but hell, they can live like a king, in Dutchess and whatever. So they move a little bit upstate to Westchester, and now they're starting to come out into Orange and Dutchess and such. And Daniel's done a great job in the party of making it interesting and making it friendly. Like the Dutchess County Libertarian Party, it was probably one of the first set up. I mean, I was involved in the Ulster County. That's where we lived. And Sean Wells now is running the Ulster County. Peace to you, Sean. I hope you're doing well out there. But meeting Daniel and then seeing what Dutchess was doing. I mean, they were having singles nights. They were doing comedy shows. They were doing everything they could to raise money for the party. And I give big ups to you for that, Daniel. You guys always are creative. And you guys always got something going on.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, for me, the biggest thing is cultural advocacy, which is to say that politics, by its very nature, tends to be a bit standoffish. But if you can communicate our ideals through the medium of culture, you can bypass these barriers and connect with people more heart to heart. So that is one of the things which we baked into the Dutchess County Libertarian Party, a cultural advocacy committee, which I chair. And it has actually worked well. I mean, we've gotten some good visibility. We did a blood drive. We did a comedy show. We have a libertarian book club. We screen libertarian movies, and we've gotten for our small size, we've gotten some disproportionate press. So,
and the thing about Daniel is, if there's two people, like Putnam, we went to Putnam one day. He called me up. He said, "Hey, Pete, I'm going out to Putnam. You and Helen want to come out Putnam?" And every time Daniel reached out to me and Helen, we said, "Sure, of course, we'll come out and speak and do whatever we have to do." If there was two people there, it didn't matter if there was 2 or 2,000. He was the same guy with the same passion, and you two people are just as important as if we had 2 million people sitting here. And that's what we truly appreciate. But heck, I think we went to one county place where nobody even showed up. Me, him, and his wife and his kid had dinner and just talked. And that was a nice night, but it was a nice night, wasn't it?
Hey,
right, in Sullivan County.
Let me ask you, I'm a big fan of donating blood. I do it myself as often as I can. I've often, like, the one civil disobedience fantasy that I have yet to realize is illegally giving blood more often than you're allowed to. You're only allowed to give at certain intervals, right? And so I do the double power red every 4 months through Vitalant. And I was wondering, like with Corona right now, I heard they were low on blood. I'm about to be, I think I'm free again. Are blood drives still happening?
They are still happening. In fact, I have O positive, so everybody loves me, and I get the notifications that they want to suck me dry as often as they can. So yes, they're still going through with that. Yes.
And personally, Daniel, off everything, how is your wife? How's your son?
They're doing well. I mean, my son is he just got into 6th grade, and the whole school was canceled. Even here we're in northeastern Dutchess County, rural Dutchess County, but even here they canceled the school. He was doing the what do you call it, the long distance learning, virtual education. And I mean, I would have loved that as a kid, but he was adjusting to it. So
Mike, listen. I saw that I think on the news today or yesterday. And here's my deal. And Helen actually even said it to me. We were driving in the car today. I said, so what if they don't open? Yeah. Why are people sending their kids to this place
Well,
anyway?
there's no reason the schools can't do what they're doing remotely. I mean, what did you say the program was? Long distance regurgitation,
Right,
indoctrination. I mean, they can still have the same effect remotely.
Yeah.
They can still propagandize our children. If you want to entrust the government with their minds, they'll have the same effect.
Now, is that county-wide, Tony, or is that statewide to shut down schools?
Well, they did it statewide. In fact, I know that New York City schools tried to shut down for the rest of the year before King Cuomo had made that decree, and he said no, you can't do that yet. Until King Cuomo said, "Yep, nope, we're shutting it down for the whole state."
Well, that's because de Blasio's got his mouth wrapped around his finger. So tight.
I'll tell you what, those two are publicly at each other's throats. It was kind of beautiful to watch. Watch the world burn, I guess. But,
By the way, I should just say in my own defense.
Where do y'all sit with separation of New York into 3 different entities?
great question.
Or
I think
5, whatever they're saying, 3 to 5. I can't remember what it is.
I've heard several different suggestions. I think it's a terrible idea. That's an idea that's rooted in the old duopoly fights. So let's now, instead of having one big state that votes blue, let's have one state that votes blue and one state that votes red. I personally just want to turn the whole freaking state gold and make us a free New York, as opposed to splitting it up into 5 unfree states. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it's purely based on that, and there's no. I would still argue with you on this one, Tony. If the government has to go through some kind of reorganization, even if it's part of the, I get that, yeah, it's a partisan fight. Like the proposal to split California up into 3 states means 4 more Democrat senators, and it'll be the same thing with New York. But maybe there's no legitimate sort of geocultural demographic breakdown, whereas in California you have Northern California, you have the Inland Empire, the Bay Area, you have the San Diego South Desert region. There's different regions, and I would say you got the same thing in New York, encouraging people to political division and being independent, further breaking down. I know it's not as good as declaring your independence just to declare your independence from a subsidiary of the federal government, but I think the shakeup might have more of a long-term positive effect. You might be more likely to turn one of those areas gold.
What I think the attraction to upstate New Yorkers is that they feel they pay so much into the city, and that's where I think
that's thing where, in Illinois.
Yeah. That's where the upstate people have their argument.
I didn't really want to go to the statist, but the taxes argument. But since you went there, this is why it won't happen, because once somebody comes into power in Albany, they're going to make sure that everybody knows that the city funds the state, because there are more people and more money coming into it. Well, yeah. I mean, if you've ever tried to buy a house,
you can't enter New York City for free. That's my first biggest thing.
Wait. What if you swim?
Yeah, well, that's about the only way.
What if you take a jetpack? You could take a jetpack into New York.
Shoot you.
So avoid the tolls, right? I bet the fuel for a jetpack to get across the Hudson would be cheaper than paying the tolls.
Yeah, you're probably right.
$24 now?
Yeah, it's absurd.
$14, I think, last time I saw.
Now, I mean, so one thing that go on, Daniel. You were about to say. So one thing that we talk about in New York a lot is home rule. So the one thing that really turns me a little bit on the on splitting the state, and Adam, you kind of go there a little bit, is allowing the separate regions of the states to make some of those decisions, take some of those unfunded mandates out of Albany out of it, and let them spend their own money locally. Now,
Right.
so I see wisdom in that. I don't. I
How
know.
can you, as a libertarian, say that you would force people without their consent to be a part of a collective?
Yeah, no, you know what? That's a great point.
I would offer just a slight nuance here, which is to say that, yes, obviously I support secession in concept. We all know that Northern California is its interests are not represented. Its interests are always outvoted by Southern California. That is why, as I understand, they want to form the free state of Jefferson with Southern Oregon and such. Well, in New York, I support the idea. The only thing is that, practically speaking, is not really even needed in a way, because if you look at the actual numbers, New York City, despite its population, not only a small portion of its population actually have the franchise, and even fewer use it. So
Right.
the upstate voting as a block and downstate voting as a block, they equal each other out, generally speaking. However, being that mainstream media is based in Manhattan is what gets reported at election time. Even here in Dutchess County, 100 miles away from New York City, we still read the press and see the press from New York City, which is to say that on election night, they always report Manhattan and maybe Westchester. And so they give the impression that New York City calls the tune for the rest of the state. But in actuality, that is not the case. So it's a little bit nuanced.
How are the voting numbers in percentage when we're talking upstate compared to the city proper? What are the percentage of people that are registered within the 5 boroughs that are voting compared to those that are in the north, the Hudson Valley and above, percentage-wise?
I think it's about
Tony May, right.
I think it's about 55-45 with the lean going to the 5 boroughs.
Right, and the 5 boroughs is roughly a third who can vote, and then there's even fewer who actually do it. So that is why New York City is it does not have all the influence which we would be led to believe it has, if you know what I mean.
I mean, some.
I think we had Chris Cole join us, if I'm not mistaken. Chris, is that you? Hey, and Chris, you're in Orlando, aren't you?
This is definitely not Chris Cole. This is CJ Abernathy, the executive producer of Adam versus the Man. Hello, Mr. Evil. How are you today?
Joined in.
Get CJ on full screen.
Yeah, put him on
Jim.
full screen for a second.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy CJ. I'm down here in Orlando. I am at the Libertarian National Convention. I would like to tell you all that I wish you could have been here, as I have witnessed to Nicholas Sarwark personally not wearing a mask, not social distancing, and mouth breathing on people. So there's that. But really glad I could hop on here real quick. I love what you're doing with your show there, Peter. It's a great conversation to have, and I think you are doing an excellent job in your startup here. So thanks for having me on, and thanks for the invite. And I really enjoy having this little network of people that we're building that are libertarian, liberty-loving people that just want to have a better future for our families. But I do, like I said, wish you guys were here, because it is a sight to see. There are pictures of Nick mouth breathing on people, and it just makes you go, man. If he's not wearing a mask, not social distancing, and just breathing on people, what are we all worried about?
Well, hey, listen, I thought I saw earlier a post, CJ, by JHB or JBH that he was standing at his booth with a mask on. So why does he have to stand at his booth with a mask on? If our own chair can
In public spaces, they require you to wear a mask, and they'll tell you, "Hey, you got to wear a mask." But as soon as you're in one of those rooms, the mask comes off, and you can just mouth breathe on people, and you just go. All the excuses that were made to cancel this are so erroneous when you actually watch Nick breathing on people.
Right.
So
It's to me, it's a complete. It's just as hypocritical as the government in which we live under any longer. And we got to be better than that, guys. We have to. If we want to be different, we have to be different. If we want to be different, we have to be.
correct, yes, sir. And the thing is that we're setting this example, and I don't think it looks good on the party for Nick to be doing that. And I'm sure he'll have his excuses and this, that, and the other. But to be the example of you're gonna mandatory mask us during the convention, I mean, the things that he said just make you go, why are you doing this? What is your intentions? I mean, I get the deeper question of, is there something that we're not being told to, I mean, what makes him so much more special that he can 1 minute be a dictator, the next minute mouth breathing on somebody? So I mean, it's hypocrisy. Sure, it's a bad example. Yes, but if anything, it should expose what bad leadership does. And
Yes.
I don't know.
Maybe we should be looking elsewhere. What is Dr. Jorgensen's position on masks?
She actually hasn't been to the convention floor yet, or gone to any of the meetings in person yet. She's expected to attend, though. So I mean, there's a giant party for her at the end of this. So obviously, there is a sort of a compromise working out. I'll tell you guys, I've been the guy that has been worried about ballot access for our candidates because of the online vote previously. There's a conversation that's been happening kind of behind the scenes with people that have been addressing my concerns, regional reps that have said that the online vote will be ratified tomorrow in a compromise for those of us that are worried about our secretaries of state that don't like libertarians. And so they would use that to discredit our vote. So if we ratify the vote tomorrow and make it so that it was confirmed by the in-person delegation there, then it'll be a legitimate for all ballot access. So I don't know how it goes tomorrow. Like I said, there's no guarantee that anybody is going to get to vote online. I'd say that I'd say your chances are better by the end of tonight versus what it was this morning. But yeah, it's up in the air still. I think that Joshua Smith is the conversation I had with him. He thinks it's going to be at best 60-40. So you guys might not get to vote from home. Who knows? So.
Now, my only concern with that one, I was questioned by Mimi, because Mimi, I'm a delegate in California. So Mimi reached out to me and said, if you're not going to be able to be there in person, would you consider giving your vote to an alternate that showed up in Orlando? I said, well, and of course I gave her a 3-paragraph answer, which is very libertarian rather than yes or no. But my thought process on it is I am a delegate. The choice for me to vote from here was given. If I've got that choice, I'd rather. If I give my vote to an alternate, I need to know the alternate's voting how I'm voting. Otherwise, he's not voting how I'm voting. And that's not giving your vote to someone else. That's relinquishing your vote. So
correct. And I
need to be a little bit better, I thought. So I just told her if we come to the point where it's best for the party and it's decided at the convention that only in-person votes are going to matter, count, or give us validity, then yes, you can at that point in time use my vote elsewhere. Otherwise, I want it myself.
So, hey, CJ, quick question about the process, though. Nick is still obviously entitled chair of the LNC.
Right.
Is he chair of this convention, since he said he would not chair this in any other convention after the virtual one? And what I understand is that as vice chair, Alex Merced would be chairing this convention. Is
I
that
thought
right?
was it.
Okay, so there's two parts to this. This is the way I'm going to give you what you're right on your answer, but my opinion, and this is opinion and speculation, so I preface that, but I believe that if the online votes are added and they get the language that says that it's an online convention and that's where the main focus is, I think he'll take the gavel back if he gets his way. That's my bold prediction for tomorrow. So credentials
How are
report.
the general, though, as far as mask wearing and stuff? How are the citizens?
You'll watch. Okay, this is funny. You'll drive down the street like we did to our Airbnb, and there'll be nobody around for a mile from anybody just walking down the street, and they're still wearing their mask.
Yeah, in their cars, all that. Yeah.
In their cars, yes.
Florida man has been scared.
Yeah, so I would say coronaphobia is alive and well here in Florida. We watched the news media last night at the Airbnb, and it was all just coronaphobia headline stories. And you know, it has a lot to do with mass brainwashing, in my opinion. So, you know, it's really sad that we can't stay consistent with our leadership in the LNC. That we're like, you're all wearing masks. Don't go to Orlando. We should do this online. They all showed up. They're socializing, not social distancing, not wearing masks, just breathing on each other. And it's like, you all lied straight up. It's a straight up lie that you all concocted to fearmonger people into online conventions, to install a technocracy in our party. And here you are doing the exact opposite of what you were telling us you were all worried about.
So, Tony, here's your spot. If you were sitting in that chair, how would you have arranged this better? How would you have approached the online convention or in-person convention in Orlando? And if so, would you be as hypocritical as the chair that we have at the moment?
Oh, that is tough. First of all, I have to preface all this by saying that I don't like how Mickey Channel does. He's been condescending. He's been something of a bully. He's been shaming people left and right on every side of the argument, and he's been a hindrance to the entire process. I actually like what we've ended up with. I mean, I wish it was in Austin and not Orlando, but other than that, I like what we've ended up with. This hybrid option isn't bad. We've come out of this with a groundbreaking application that's going to help us in these, if and when the government pushes these situations down on us in the future, because we know it's going to happen at some time again in the future. This isn't the last time we're going to see a quarantine. It's going to happen. So I like the hybrid idea. I like being able to credential people remotely, and I'm glad we're figuring that out. What we did in May was, how do I say this in a family-friendly way that'll work well on YouTube? It was a crap show. I mean, it really was. There was no control, and that's really where it comes down to. What we're doing for Orlando, we should have been doing then.
I hate to say that. Well, I don't hate to say this. Adam was right. So we should have done this in Texas. At the end of the day, this whole process. I mean, the coronaphobia would have been a lot less. Again, I've literally seen with my own eyeballs this man mouth breathing within like 12 inches of another person with no mask in an after party, and it's just like, this is a joke. So, but Mr. Yeeple, thank you again for allowing me on your podcast here. Adam, it's always good to see you, gentlemen. I will look forward to watching this after the show after it's done. Jim?
Before you leave, I didn't jump on for no reason, just to be some creepy guy that jumped on and didn't say anything.
No, what's up? Producer Jim Freedom, sir.
Just jumping in on your show there, but I just wanted to ask,
appreciate you showing up. Thank you for the report.
all that stuff you were talking about, did you get any of it on video?
There are pictures, Jim. That's the best we could do.
Okay, you can't like when you were next time you're walking in tomorrow or something. Just
Oh,
put the
the paparazzi will be on him tomorrow. Make no mistake about it. So again, Mr. Yeeple, thank you for
Videos.
allowing me on tonight, and you guys have an excellent night. You guys, we'll see you guys next time.
All right, thank you, CJ, for your update, man. We appreciate it. Yeah, listen, I'm glad we had some boots on the ground there because that was really important to me. To get somebody that was in Orlando just to give us a feel of what's going on there. I mean, I would have loved to have been there in person. Adam would have loved to have been there in person. I know both of you would have loved to have been there in person. But I think that with the way things are and the chances we take, and I'm not even talking chances of becoming infected in any way. I know the chances we take as far as our liberties and our freedoms being further infringed upon by quite possibly being quarantined somewhere or having to self-quarantine for 14 days. I think it's just a better avenue at this point in time that we ain't there.
Well, even that isn't really the main factor for me. Like, I mean, there's so many little things, but I'm fortunate enough. My job is Adam versus the Man. I can do my podcast from my bus from anywhere in the world. And there is that threat, Peter, that, just traveling right now, if you had to drive across 8 states as we would to get there, there's a whole other liability. But with the presidential nomination having happened, with all of the other risk and uncertainty, it's really unfortunate. And Tony, I'm with you that this fundamentally was the right approach. We could have done it from the beginning and allowed people to attend remotely in Austin as scheduled. And but the way it's been handled, the way that we have gotten to this point, and everything that I've seen Sarwark do, and without naming any other names, just the failures of the LNC in general, the leadership of the party. And I don't even want to take that framing of it, because it could all be infiltrators and saboteurs and people being threatened. And I know this sounds out there and stupid, when we're talking about this like cut and dry political realm, but if you don't know the history of COINTELPRO, it's going to sound crazy to say, well, there might be some deliberate infiltration. And even just from the Republicans or Democrats, like they have hundreds of millions of dollars. You think they can't afford to infiltrate the LP? Of course they can. But
Sure they
even
can.
if it's someone who's entirely well-intentioned to say, hey, Peter, we're going to, hey, you know what? We're going to mess with your benefits. We're going to mess with your rent. We're going to mess with your job if you don't do this. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to threaten people in meaningful, dangerous, subtle ways and get them to do little things. If you're really a threat to the system, they're going to do whatever it takes to neutralize us. And that's why I never get discouraged for the long term by any of these setbacks or frustrations. Right. And one of the things we talked about on my show today is like Corona is just kind of an excuse for everybody to do all sorts of things that they wanted to do and never had an excuse for. Hey, you don't want to go to school. Hey, you don't want to go to work. You just, hey, you want to bully people, and people like Sarwark, like you said, and Tony, the way that you called him out, I think very directly and professionally was very appropriate. I hope that message is going to be represented on the debate stage or virtual stage or whatever it is we get.
Yeah, how does that work with you now? How does that work with you now, Tony? Are you going to debate online on a screen? How does this work?
I hope so. I'm still trying to figure out the mechanics of it. We've done virtual debates before. Everybody's going to be social distanced in Austin anyway, so there's no reason. Austin, or see, I have Austin on the mind now. In Orlando anyway. So I see no reason why we can't do it, but we're still working out the actual mechanics of doing that. But I am going to be in the debates tomorrow. There's no doubt about that.
I hope they work all that out. I sat through that 75-hour thing that Fishman put on yesterday about making sure that we could vote online and all that. We'll see if it works the way it does. Let's see if we don't have another 46,000 hours in a 24-hour day where we've got our 6 people that complain about everything complaining still. But listen, there's never a perfect system. but I don't see why this couldn't have been done in Austin. It should have been done in Austin. And not for nothing, things would have been different if they were. And I can wholeheartedly say that. I can say that from experience. I can say that from experience to the fact that in person, people are less likely to yes you and no you than they are during a text message or an email or or whatever. And we were fighting for delegates. We fought for delegates every single day. And you know, yes. California was a good example. You know, when we went in there were a lot of people that were like, oh, I don't know, but I'm going to go. I mean, you got to remember, Chafee was in then, you know, he was a recognizable name. People thought that, oh, maybe we'll get this, you know, independent that's been in office before to take us through. And, you know, I mean, but in person, fighting for delegates and this, we did very well there. And I think we would have done even better, I think, in Texas. I'm talking about Adam's platform, honestly. He goes, I mean, that's what I worked. That's what I did. So,
Yeah,
a bit different. Maybe not a different candidate sitting, but it would definitely have been a different.
Well, even without the manipulations, just there's an element of fear that leads even libertarians to want to go with a safer choice. Now, Peter is more the hype man, and I got to be humble on my own behalf to say that, you know, it was unfortunate to come in sixth. I don't think I was robbed of the victory, although it would have been a lot more potential. It would have been a lot more likely, rather, if we had not been eliminated and been the choice of so many people's second vote. But, you know, if I was robbed of second or third place, you know, for sixth, and people started calling me the Bernie Sanders and Ron Paul of the Libertarian Party, I was very, very flattered by that. But no, the fact remains, we didn't have the majority, Peter. Like, we really, this was our first.
Been different. I didn't
it would have been different, right.
Different,
but I think what that point goes to, and all of this, and for anybody who's a supporter of mine or localization or just anybody who shares our vision of a world set free in our lifetime and can always keep that in mind as being the goal, the end that justifies no unethical means in politics and no compromise, then, you know, we still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And it's really important to not be discouraged by what's happening now and stick around. And one of the unfortunate dynamics of politics and the Libertarian Party in particular, you know, one of the things I've seen, and I said this as an anarchist when I used to identify as one, I think now voluntarist, libertarian, you know, I reject the whole minarchist anarchist spectrum to begin with. If you're a voluntarist, as long as it's voluntary, it doesn't matter how much government or lack of it that you have. But what I saw was that a lot of, you know, there's this apparent split in the Libertarian Party between sort of, you know, establishment libertarians and principled libertarians. And the thing is, the establishment libertarians, who are really statist at heart, stick around. They have no problem sticking around. They are not discouraged by organizational dysfunction. They expect it. They are not discouraged by conflict. They are motivated by it. They are comfortable with it. Those of us who want peace and harmony, we come into politics and go, oh, this is disgusting. I'm out of here. And more come through and more come through. And this is the cycle in the LP. And the good people go their separate ways and the bad people stick around. And we need good people to stick around and to not be discouraged by seeing bad people. And I don't want to say that Nick Sarwark is a bad person, but he, in this sense, in this political sense, yeah, he's one of the bad people. He's one of the people who would rather play politics than get freedom done. And you know, that we have great alternatives like Tony, and of course Joshua Smith and so many others. I'm very excited about. And Tony, at very least, you know, even if you don't win the chair, I hope that you will participate in the LNC at large race, although that looks very crowded as a field.
It's a crowded race. I don't know.
Yeah, but I hope that even if you don't win the chairs race, that you keep plugging away, that you run for the LNC, and then you make sure that your voice is heard in the national party conversation.
Well, I appreciate that. I win or lose, you're not going to shut me up. So
That's what we want to hear. Like, one person I haven't even seen a post from. I mean, shit, I still see posts from Mark Whitney, but I have not seen one post. What the hell was his name? Now I forget the goddamn asshole's name that ran. The old dude that ran for president.
JV?
No, Jacob.
Bill Weld?
Jacob.
oh,
Jacob
Hornberger.
The other old dude.
He
The
had
other
Jacob
zero-
Hornberger,
he
okay.
had zero impact on my impact or anything on me. Everybody was so mad at me for that. They're like, why aren't you even listening to him? I said, because he's an idiot. I mean, to
I wouldn't
me,
go that far.
hold on.
I like Jacob.
Hold on. Jacob likes Jacob too much. That's just my problem with Jacob. You can't like yourself more than what you fight for. You have to like what you fight for more than you like for yourself. I disagree with people liking themselves. I don't disagree with people thinking they're the best thing with sliced bread. If what your end goal is to achieve. And I just don't think it was. And that's just, again, just my personal opinion. We're allowed to have those things.
I'm old.
My
I'm
first
old.
pick was Adam. My second pick wasn't Jacob. It was Joe. Why? Because I think Joe is actually a person of principle. If you ever read the LP preface, you're looking at Joe. Joe recites it almost as much as she recites her name.
Well, I mean, go
ahead.
Look at who she learned from. She was Harry Brown's running mate. She was my first libertarian vote. So it's really come full circle for me. And to the Hornberger point, I remember what he did to Harry Brown in 2000. So you should go read up on that one.
Yeah.
I think my point with Jacob is that Jacob didn't mind being dirty, and I think that he didn't mind the when I watched all of the debates, nobody threw shit at anybody else. Nobody spit nothing at anybody else. They might have disagreed one, but they really didn't. Except for Mark. Let's be
Mark Whitney.
Yeah, but that's Mark's MO. I mean, that's what he does. Okay, that's what he
Even
does.
when they say no, keep
Keep
banging.
banging. That's
Wait,
right.
that sounds like rape.
That's who he is. But that's who he is. You know what I mean? Jacob, if he got to the point where he started mudslinging, and the whole Texas thing proved it to me. He sat back and it showed me that if he didn't win the nomination, you wouldn't see his name behind the person. And in California, every candidate that sat on that stage said, I will not only bring my people, I'll bring my money. And I haven't seen none of that come. I mean, maybe I don't know. I guess I should personally ask Joe. Maybe he has. But if he has done it, he hasn't done it publicly, in my opinion. That's just my opinion again. I'm allowed that. Again, voluntary option.
I was Mark Whitney really caught my attention in the beginning because somebody who could communicate in the medium of humor, that would really break through barriers. But he got nasty very quickly, and when Jacob Hornberger was a front runner there in California, that Mark Whitney really singled him out. It was bad form. It was bad form.
Yeah.
But then, of course, if you remember that
his mouth went to his foot. His foot went to his mouth, and that was the unfortunate thing for him. But again, I said, because you got to remember, me and Daniel are friends, and then hey, I'm working on Adam's camp. But what about Mark Whitney? What about Mark Whitney? I met him in person. He said,
well.
Yeah. So me and Daniel went back and forth on that one.
Sure. No, look, hey, nobody. Adam Kokesh is a superhero of our movement. I mean, I saw Adam Kokesh in the summer of 2008 during the Ron Paul's big campaign. Ron Paul, of course, gold-pilled me. I saw Adam Kokesh at the rally in Washington, D.C. when you were still with Veterans Against the Iraq War, and again, we met in Liberty Fest in 2015 in Brooklyn. Not that you'll remember that. I'd be surprised if you did. But
I remember the event for sure. That was a lot of fun.
Right. You were still wearing an ankle bracelet at a time. But my point just being that, look, we all do what we can, where we can, how we can. So, and that is how it will work. I mean, the state will not be killed except by a death of 1,000 cuts. So each of us doing our part, little by little, we will wear it down. I think it may be. Let me throw a projection here. About 80 years before we see a state reduced to something more resembling a voluntarist paradigm. But that will only be the case if we all do our parts in the way we can. So,
and you're doing everything you can every day, and I do know that. I just think we have to stay true and steadfast to what we believe. Now, my way is just my way. Listen, I've embraced freedom. I've taken freedom. I haven't asked for permission for it. I believe I'm entitled to it. I didn't ask to be brought to this world. I didn't put in a ticket in heaven, maybe, or wherever you come from, and put a ticket out and say, hey, listen, send me, put me with them because I want to live like that. That's not what happened. I was brought here by my parents.
I did, actually. That's how I ended up as a white male.
And you picked Jewish too?
Hey, just because I'm Jewish doesn't mean I can't pretend to be just white if I want to. It's the best part about being Jewish. You can be a minority or not whenever you feel like it.
Oh, man.
The fact of the matter is that I was brought here, and being here, I think all I'm supposed to do is offer the best me I can to it, to not take from it, to try to put towards it, to try to nourish as I go along. And that's all I really truly can do. And I think if we all embrace that as a process of how we live, we don't need to be governed so much. We don't need to be ruled over. Why? Because we'll live by respect. We'll live by some sort of principle with some kind of understanding that as long as we aren't infringing upon other people's rights and liberties, and we are allowing other people to be free, to live as though they want to produce and do as they feel, without our infringement and pay no mind to them, and they do the same to us, I don't think of a better society that we can live in. And I think that it would run so much better. Why? Because you don't have to like your neighbor. You just don't have to deal with them. And honestly, that's the truth. You don't have to like everyone. People say all the time, you fart rainbows and shit. No, well, yeah, because I choose to, man. I'd rather be a happy guy that lives in a productive manner, that doesn't harm anyone, and is living the best life he can live for himself than anything in the world. And I think if we all embrace that, we would live in a better country.
Guys, I got to run. Thank you for having me. Pastor Yapel, Adam, thank you. I'm happy to come back here again when I'm chair next week.
You got it, Tony. We wish you the best of luck. Guys, please look up Tony and support him in New York. He is right now the acting chair in New York. So let's get behind him. Let's write those letters. Let's get this ballot access thing wrapped up, and let's prove that we can make a better New York.
Definitely.
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Now, Tony, thank you for joining
us. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care, Tony.
And Daniel, what's on your plate and what's going on with you now? What's your next project you've got going after, obviously, this weekend? Because I know your attention's to this weekend.
Well, I'm actually, I was an alternate, but they did not need me at the remote delegation. So I actually have some time off, so to speak. Of course, I'm not spending this on downtime completely. We have a lot of work for our upcoming statewide convention, and I have a lot of work with the county development. My mentor in county development, Mr. Mark Vitora from Western New York, he actually did not win his seat on the state committee. So whereas I expected to be working in collaboration with him, as things stand, I may be doing it all by myself. So that means a lot of calls and faxes and emails and just trying to whip the troops into readiness and such. So that's what I'm doing these days.
Excellent, brother. Thank you so much, man. You keep up the hard work in New York. If you ever need anything from us, you know we're only ever a phone call away. We love you. Peace to your wife and your son. Give them our love from me and from Helen. And thank you so much for joining us, man.
Thank you so much, Adam. You are definitely a hero of mine. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. All right, peace. Well, guys, listen. We got a little piece from Orlando. We seen CJ Underground, found out that the commander-in-chief there is just like the commander-in-chief that we have in the White House, so he ain't much different than anybody else. But, you know, Tony's a good guy. I'm glad that he came on. He's got an uphill battle in New York. You know, I'm glad he's got people like Daniel fighting for him. He's got Larry in his corner. You know, those things will help him out. What do you think now? What do you think after all you've heard about the lay of the land in Orlando, the lay of the land in you know, Libertyville? What is this weekend going to do for us, or is it going to do a damn thing? Honestly,
I think I'll have another drink.
there you go. That about says it all, folks. Well, from the Garden of Freedom here in Ashfork, Arizona, Adam Kokesh, King, ruler, supreme being of Gardenia. Flip it around. You got
No, the website,
Oh,
freedomline.com.
Freedomline.com, as we plug on everything that we own. Y'all, please visit. You yourself can have a copy of
Look at that.
Freedom. And you can also listen to the audio version if you want it. Please look up the Patreon at Adam versus the Man. Let's support Adam and his show. Let's keep his political thought and mind out there. Continually updating us on personal, on daily events and giving the libertarian view, guys. There's Adam versus the Man. That's on YouTube. Please visit that. Visit us at the Garden of Freedom on Facebook and on Instagram. See what we got going on out here. If you guys want to experience true freedom, if you really like to work in and out about, you know, and come and camp and be part of the, you know, a free society, come write us, man. Join us. You'll get me or my wife or caretakers here, or Adam himself. We always direct everybody to Adam before they come to visit. But please come out and visit. I mean, we're like a community like 12 strong right now.
Well, it's funny. We only have
3 of us on site.
4 full-timers.
Yeah.
And only 3 of us really, well, 5 full-timers. Well, no, we actually have, you count everybody when the Wards get back and Jim gets back and Sam is back. And then we have, really we have about a dozen in our core community, and we have a few more, right? Kim and there's someone else who I'm forgetting who's scheduled to come out for at least a few months.
Daniel Berman here. Bremen, he's our Berman. He's a friend of ours. He's coming out.
Different Dan Berman.
Yeah, we've got a couple.
Dan's Taxationist.
No, not that one. No.
But we will give him a yellow hat for photo ops when he's out here.
And he's running for governor in Texas, guys. So please, let's.
Oh, okay, that. Okay, right.
Let's vote for Dan.
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you, Jim, for producing the show. And you got our Garden of Freedom Instagram page up there, and of course, disclaimer: this is not a supportive Instagram, Facebook subsidiary.
No,
but it is a great mechanism of sharing photos, and as a practical online photo hosting and sharing device, it serves us very well with the Garden of Freedom. So check it out, please. Instagram at the Garden of Freedom. It's an easy way to connect with us. My main website, thefreedomline.com. You can find everything else there.
Adam versus the Man on
Adam
YouTube.
versus the Man.
And of course, the voluntary option on YouTube. And we got Canada We Talk 420. That's my wife and my company. My wife believes in total holism. That's how we live our life. Please subscribe to that. We're over 1,000 subscribers thanks to Adam's show last Friday. He got us over the hump. But the voluntary option needs some help on YouTube, folks. So let's subscribe and let's share. And that's it for us tonight. I think we're going to sit back, finish our drinks, eat a little bit of fruit.
I already finished the rum.
Did you? That's all right. I got a bottle of whiskey.
Well, hey, Peter, I should point out that your wedding gift for us of an ounce of really wonderful pipe tobacco is at its very end.
Oh,
this is the last bowl from that ounce that has lasted us now
Since May 1st.
2 months and 7 days.
Oh, that's lasted you. I had
Yeah.
half a pound here though, but we smoked the last
But
bowl.
you know how much of a lightweight like that's.
But
That's
no,
a
it was
pretty good
good.
measure. What's the only other tobacco I've had during this time? I think I had one other eighth,
Yeah, that was it.
and I probably shared with other people
Yeah.
maybe another eighth. So I've had this is
It's
a
a
really
very
interesting
mild
measure.
habit.
An ounce and a quarter over 2 months.
That's
It's
like
less than an eighth
a week. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm lightweight.
Yeah.
And I still think like I need a break sometimes. I do take breaks and sort of.
I
my
take
brain
too much
adjusts and
oil to worry about
recalibrate,
smoking
but-
anymore. My health depends on it. My life depends on it. I really don't have to smoke that much because I'm stoned more than I'm not. But from the voluntary option, folks, join us next Wednesday night. You never know who we're going to have on here. But thank you again, Adam Kokesh, for co-hosting with me tonight. Thank you again to Daniel Donnelly for coming on. And thank you again to Tony as well. We wish you luck in the LNC. Thank you, CJ, from your report from Orlando. Thank you, Jim Freedom, for producing the show. And that's it from us, guys. Listen, be the freedom in which you wish to live. That's all I ever got for you. Peace.